The big spaceship appeared in Earth's orbit on a Tuesday morning. It was 3 times larger than the International Space Station and shaped like a giant silver leaf. Most humans were scared, but some were excited. After decades of wondering if aliens existed, humanity finally had its answer. In Washington, D.C., a team of diplomats, scientists, and military officers gathered quickly. President Howard sat at the head of the table, his face serious as he looked at the images of the alien vessel on the screens around the room. "What do we know?" he asked. Dr. Ellen Wright, the lead scientist, cleared her throat. "They're broadcasting a message in over 50 Earth languages. They call themselves the Galactic Concordat, a union of nearly 500 different alien species. They want to meet with Earth's leaders." Admiral John Carter frowned. "Could be a trap. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it already," said Diane Foster, the Secretary of State. "I think we should hear what they have to say." 3 days later, the first meeting between humans and aliens took place. The aliens sent 7 representatives, each from a different species. The human delegation was led by Ambassador Alan Reed, a calm man with gray hair and a friendly smile. The lead alien called itself Zithvar. It looked like a tall praying mantis wearing a silver robe. Its voice came through a small translator device. "We welcome Earth to the galactic community," it said, making a strange gesture with its front legs. "For 10,000 years, the Concordat has maintained peace among the stars. We have rules and agreements that all civilizations follow. These help everyone live together without problems." Ambassador Reed smiled politely. "We thank you for the welcome. Humanity is eager to learn about our galactic neighbors." Zithvar placed a small crystal on the table. It projected a hologram showing hundreds of alien worlds. "First, we must discuss the Resource Allocation Accord. All new species must agree to this. It controls how much of each resource a species can use." A blue blob-like alien named Olu moved forward. "Earth will be placed in Development Tier 3. This means you may use 17% of your solar system's mineral resources, 23% of biological resources, and 9% of rare elements. The rest is preserved for future needs or allocated to higher-tier civilizations." Reed's smile didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "And what do we get in return?" "Protection. Knowledge. A place in the Concordat," answered a tall, thin alien with 4 arms. "I see," said Reed. "And if we wanted to use more of our own resources?" The aliens looked at each other in confusion. Zithvar's antennae twitched. "That is not possible. The Resource Allocation Accord is the foundation of galactic peace. No species has ever rejected it." Over the next month, meetings continued. The aliens explained more accords and treaties: the Defense Limitation Treaty, the Cultural Exchange Protocol, the Technology Development Guidelines, and dozens more. Each one placed strict limits on what humanity could do. In a private meeting, room at the United Nations, Earth's leaders discussed their options. "These accords are ridiculous," said General Laura Bennett, slamming her hand on the table. "They want to control everything: how we build our ships, how we defend ourselves, even how fast we can develop technology." President Howard looked thoughtful. "But they offer protection and knowledge. That has value." "Knowledge they control completely," said Dr. Wright. "They want to drip-feed us technology over centuries. We'd advance faster on our own." Ambassador Reed nodded. "I believe these aliens are genuine. They're not evil or trying to conquer us. They truly believe their system works, but they created it for species that developed differently than humans." "What do you suggest?" asked the president. "We reject the Resource Accord," Reed said simply. "It's the foundation of their system. By rejecting it, we make clear that humanity will make its own choices." The vote was unanimous. The next day, Ambassador Reed sat across from the alien delegation. Zithvar seemed nervous, its mandibles clicking rapidly. "Have you reviewed the Resource Allocation Accord?" the alien asked. "Are you ready to sign?" Reed smiled warmly. "We have carefully considered your proposal. Earth thanks the Concordat for its offer, but we must decline." The room went completely silent. The aliens stared at Reed with various expressions of shock. Olu, the blob alien, turned a dark purple color. Zith-Var's antennae stood straight up. "Perhaps you misunderstand," Zith-Var said slowly. "The accord is not optional. All species must agree to resource limitations." "We understand perfectly," Reed replied. "But humanity has decided that we will manage our own resources. We are open to trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and friendly relations. But we will not accept external control of Earth's resources." "This is impossible," shouted a small, furry alien. "In 10,000 years, no species has ever rejected a concordant accord," Reed smiled. "There's a first time for everything." The aliens huddled together, talking in urgent, hushed tones. Finally, Zith-Var turned back to the humans. "We will need to consult with the High Council. This situation is unprecedented." "Of course," Reed said politely. "We're happy to continue discussions while you consult your leaders." After the aliens left, Secretary Foster approached Reed. "Do you think we made a mistake?" Reed shook his head. "No. Did you notice how shocked they were? Their system is built on everyone following the rules without question. They have no idea how to handle a species that says no." "What happens next?" asked President Howard. "They'll try to convince us. They'll offer small changes to make the accord more appealing. They'll warn us of dangers, but ultimately they need us more than we need them." "Why?" asked General Bennett. Reed smiled. "Because we're different. I watch them during the meetings. They're fascinated by us. We develop technology faster than any species they've encountered. We're adaptable in ways they find amazing. We're valuable to them." Over the next week, the aliens made several more attempts to persuade humanity to sign the accord. Each time, Ambassador Reed politely refused. The turning point came when a junior alien diplomat was overheard saying to another, "These humans are strange. They went from first flight to landing on their moon in less than 70 years. It took the Viriks 300 years to do the same." When Reed heard this, he knew humanity had an advantage. The aliens thought in terms of thousands of years. Humans thought in terms of decades. On the final day of negotiations, Zith-Var made one last attempt. "We regret to inform you that without signing the Resource Allocation Accord, Earth cannot join the Galactic Concordat." Reed nodded respectfully. "We understand. Earth is willing to establish independent relations with the Concordat and its member species. We can be friends without being members." As the alien delegation prepared to depart, Olu approached Reed privately. "I do not understand. Don't you fear being alone in the galaxy?" Reed smiled. "Humanity has always charted its own path, Olu. We respect your Concordat, but we must follow our own journey." The aliens left Earth's orbit that evening, but everyone knew they would be back. Humanity had done something unprecedented in the galaxy. They had said no to the rules that governed 500 other species, and somewhere in the vastness of space, the Galactic High Council was gathering for an emergency meeting about the strange, stubborn species called humans. 6 months passed since humanity rejected the Resource Allocation Accord. Earth used this time wisely. Scientists worked day and night studying the small amount of technology the aliens had shared. Military leaders made plans. Politicians formed new departments to handle space matters. Admiral Susan Grant stood on the observation deck of the Armstrong space station, watching as workers finished building Earth's first real warship. They called it the ECS Defender. It was small compared to alien ships, but it had weapons and shields based on technology that humans had figured out on their own. "Impressive, isn't it?" said Director Paul Harris as he joined her at the window. He led the new Earth Space Agency. Susan nodded. 2 years ago, we could barely get to Mars. Now we're building ships that can travel between stars." "The aliens won't like it," Paul said. "According to their rules, we shouldn't have this technology for another 100 years at least." Susan smiled. "Good thing we didn't sign their rules." An alarm sounded, and a voice came over the speakers. "Alert! 3 Concordat vessels have entered Earth orbit. They are requesting to speak with Earth leaders." This time, the alien delegation landed their ship at a special landing pad built just for them in Virginia. Ambassador Alan Reed was there to meet them, along with Admiral Grant and several other military and government officials. Sithvar stepped out first, followed by 4 other aliens. None of them looked happy. "Welcome back to Earth," said Reed with a smile. "How can we help you?" Sithvar's antennae twitched in what humans now recognized as annoyance. "We have detected unauthorized technology development. You are building warships." "We are building ships to protect Earth, yes," Reed replied calmly. A tall, gray alien with 6 eyes stepped forward. "This violates the Defense Limitation Treaty. All species must follow the proper development path." Admiral Grant spoke up. "Except we never signed that treaty." "All species must comply," the gray alien insisted. "It is for galactic safety." Reed kept his voice friendly. "We understand your concern, but Earth has decided to handle its own defense. We aren't threatening anyone. We're simply protecting ourselves." Sithvar made a strange, clicking sound. "The High Council is deeply troubled by human behavior. First, resources, now defense. This is not how species join the galactic community." "Perhaps the community needs to change," suggested Reed. "Not every species develops the same way." The aliens refused to accept this answer. For the next week, meetings continued. The aliens showed videos of terrible space wars from thousands of years ago. They explained how their system prevented such disasters. In a private meeting with Earth leaders, Admiral Grant shared her thoughts. "They're scared. Not of our tiny fleet, we couldn't hurt them if we tried. They're scared of change. Their system has worked for so long that they can't imagine anything different." President Howard nodded. "But we can't accept their limitations. At their pace, we'd be stuck in our solar system for the next 5 centuries. I have an idea," said Science Director Lisa Evans. "What if we offer a compromise? Not on defense, we need to protect ourselves. But what about cultural exchange?" 2 days later, Reed presented the proposal. "Earth is willing to participate in your cultural exchange program. We would like to share human art, music, and history with the galaxy." The aliens seemed relieved. Finally, humans were agreeing to something. Olu, the blob alien, turned a happy shade of pink. "Excellent. We will provide the guidelines for proper cultural submissions." 3 months later, the ECS Defender was ready for its first test flight. Admiral Grant stood on the bridge, feeling proud as she looked at her crew. They wore the new dark blue uniforms of Earth's space fleet. "All systems ready, Admiral," reported Captain Ben Lewis from his station. "Take us out, Captain, slow and steady." The ship moved smoothly out of Earth orbit. Everything was working perfectly. Then sensors started beeping. "Admiral, 3 Concordat." "Ship's approaching at high speed," said the sensor officer. "They're charging weapons." On the main screen, a familiar face appeared. It was Fleet Commander Traz, a reptilian alien with green scales and yellow eyes. "Human vessel, power down your engines immediately. Your ship violates 17 sections of the Defense Limitation Treaty. Prepare to be boarded." Admiral Grant stayed calm. "Commander Traz, this is Admiral Susan Grant of Earth. Our ship is on a peaceful test mission. We have not signed your treaty and are not bound by it. All species must comply with proper development tiers." Traz hissed. "Power down or we will disable your ship." Susan looked at her crew, then back at the screen. "Commander, I must inform you that we consider any attempt to disable our ship an act of war against Earth. We don't want conflict, but we will defend ourselves." The alien's yellow eyes widened in surprise. He clearly hadn't expected this response. The Concordat ships remained in position, weapons still charged. For 10 tense minutes, no one moved. Then Captain Lewis whispered, "Admiral, I'm detecting energy signatures from all 3 ships. They're targeting us." Susan nodded and spoke clearly. "Commander Traz, we have detected your targeting systems locking onto our vessel. This is your final warning. Disengage or we will take defensive action." More silence. Then slowly, the energy signatures faded. The alien ships were powering down their weapons. Traz looked furious. "This isn't over, humans. The High Council will hear of this defiance." After the alien ships departed, the bridge crew cheered. They had stood their ground against the mighty Concordat and won. That evening, In the White House Situation Room, Admiral Grant briefed the president and his advisors. "They backed down, sir. They weren't expecting us to stand firm." "Will they be back?" asked the president. "Definitely, but now they know we won't be pushed around." Ambassador Reed smiled. "This gives us more room to negotiate. The cultural exchange program starts next month. I've selected Jake Phillips to head it. He has some creative ideas about how to present human culture." Science Director Evans looked excited. "And my team has made breakthroughs with the alien technology we've studied. We can now build faster engines, better communication systems, even improve medical tools." "How long would these developments have taken under concordant rules?" asked the president. "About 300 years, Evans replied. Everyone in the room smiled. Humanity was moving forward at its own pace, not the slow, careful pace the aliens preferred. Outside, in space, news spread quickly about the strange humans who refused to follow the rules. Some species were horrified, others were secretly impressed, and in quiet corners of alien ships and stations, some began to wonder, what if the humans were right? What if the ancient rules weren't always best? Meanwhile, on Earth, factories worked, day and night building more ships. Scientists made new discoveries, and Jake Phillips planned a cultural exhibition that would shock the entire Galactic Concordat. The humans were just getting started. The Galactic Cultural Center floated in space near Alpha Centauri, the closest star system to Earth. It was a massive ring-shaped station where hundreds of alien species shared their art, music, and history. Now, for the first time, humans were invited to create their own exhibition. Jake Phillips stood in the empty hall assigned to Earth, scratching his beard as he looked around. The aliens had given him a thick book of rules for cultural displays. It listed thousands of regulations about what could be shown and how. "What do you think?" asked Maria Lopez, his assistant. She held a tablet showing their exhibition plans. Jake grinned. "I think we're going to break almost every rule in their book." 2 weeks later, Jake met with Cultural Minister Elena Dre, a tall, blue-skinned alien with silver hair. She came to inspect the human exhibition before it opened. "I am pleased that Earth has agreed to participate in cultural exchange," she said formally. "This is an important step toward better understanding between our peoples." "We're excited too," Jake said. "Would you like to see what we've done?" When the doors opened, Minister Dre stopped in shock. Instead of the quiet, organized displays she expected, the human exhibition was loud, bright, and chaotic. On one wall, giant screens showed Earth cities, forests, oceans, and mountains. Another area had a small stage where human musicians would perform live concerts. There was a section with games that visitors could play, and another with food that they could taste. In the center, a replica of a city street allowed aliens to experience a human neighborhood festival. "What is this?" gasped Minister Dre. "Where are the formal cultural artifacts? Where are the historical displays?" "This is completely inappropriate," Jake smiled. "This is human culture. It's not meant to be seen from a distance. It's meant to be experienced." "But the noise. Your music can be heard throughout half the exhibition hall. You must use sound dampening fields like everyone else." "Why?" asked Jake. "If aliens want to understand humans, they need to experience how we really live. Our music, our food, our games, these are what make us who we are." Minister Dre's skin turned a darker blue in what Jake now knew was anger. "This violates 36 separate guidelines in the Cultural Exchange Protocol. I cannot approve this exhibition." "We never agreed to follow all those guidelines," Jake reminded her. "We agreed to participate in cultural exchange. This is our way of sharing." For the next 3 days, Minister Dre and her team tried to force Jake to change the exhibition. They threatened to close it down, to ban Earth from future cultural events, even to report them to the High Council. Jake remained polite, but firm. Finally, the exhibition opened to the public. The aliens in charge expected it to fail. They thought other species would avoid the noisy, disorganized human section. They were wrong. On the first day, more aliens visited the Earth exhibition than any other. By the end of the week, Lines stretched around the station as visitors waited to experience human culture. Young aliens especially loved it. They danced to human music, played human games, and asked endless questions. Many started wearing clothes inspired by human styles. Some even began questioning their own cultural display rules. Minister Dre watched this with growing concern. She called for an emergency meeting with Ambassador Karen Chen, who had replaced Alan Reed as Earth's representative. "Your exhibition is causing serious problems," Minister Dre said. "Young members of 17 different species have started protest movements demanding changes to our cultural protocols." Ambassador Chen looked surprised. "They're just enjoying our exhibition. What's the problem?" "The problem is that for 10,000 years, we have maintained careful cultural balance. Each species presents its culture in appropriate, controlled ways. Your chaos threatens that balance." "Maybe some chaos is good," suggested Chen. "Culture isn't static. It grows and changes." "Not in the Concordat," said Minister Dre firmly. "Stability is our highest value." Chen smiled. "That may be your problem. Humans value growth over stability. We believe in change, in trying new things, in questioning old ways." As weeks passed, the human exhibition became the most popular in the history of the cultural center. Alien visitors began bringing ideas, from Earth back to their homeworlds. Food, music, art, games, human culture spread rapidly through the galaxy. The Concordat leaders grew more worried each day. They held special meetings about the human problem. Some wanted to ban all human cultural exports. Others suggested limiting contact between humans and younger species. Meanwhile, on a small planet called Nira, a group of young aliens called the Free Singers started performing human-style music in public. When authorities tried to stop them, thousands joined in protests. They demanded the right to express themselves freely, like humans did. Similar movements appeared on other worlds. The careful control that the Concordat had maintained for thousands of years began to crack. Back at the Cultural Center, Jake received a message from Admiral Grant. She wanted to meet urgently. When they connected by secure video, her face was serious. "Your exhibition has caused quite a stir, Jake. The Concordat High Council is considering sanctions against Earth." Jake frowned. "For a cultural exhibition? That seems extreme." "It's not just the exhibition," Susan explained. "It's what it represents. First, we rejected their resource rules. Then we ignored their defense limitations. Now, we're changing how they think about culture. We're disrupting their entire system. Is that bad?" asked Jake. Susan smiled. "Actually, many younger species see it as good. They've been under the Concordat's thumb for too long. You're giving them ideas about freedom and self-expression." "What should we do?" Jake asked. "Keep doing exactly what you're doing," Susan replied, "and get ready for the next step. Director Evans has a new technology sharing proposal that's going to shock them even more." The next day, Minister Dre visited the human exhibition again. She watched as aliens danced to human music, tasted human food, and played human games. Their joy was obvious. "I don't understand," she said quietly to Jake. "Why do they love this so much?" Jake thought for a moment. "Because it's real. We're not just showing them perfect, polished versions of our culture. We're showing them the messy, noisy, wonderful truth of being human, and that resonates with people no matter what planet they're from." Minister Dre's skin shifted to a lighter shade of blue. 10,000 years of careful cultural management, and humans undo it in weeks. "Not undoing," Jake corrected. "Evolving. That's what humans do best. We change, adapt, question, grow. And now, we're helping the galaxy do the same." As Jake watched, the alien visitors enjoying the exhibition, he smiled to himself. Humanity was making its mark on the galaxy, not through conquest or power, but through ideas. And ideas, once spread, could never be contained again. In a distant meeting room, the Concordat High Council gathered to discuss their next move. The human problem was growing, and they had no idea how to stop it. The Galactic Technology Center was the biggest building on the Concordat's main space station. It was where aliens from hundreds of worlds shared their inventions. but they shared them carefully, following strict rules about which species could use which technologies. Chief Engineer Nancy Wilson stood before the Concordat Technology Committee. She wore her blue Earth Space Agency uniform and held a simple tablet. The alien engineers and officials looked at her with a mix of curiosity and worry. "Thank you for meeting with me," Nancy said. "Earth has reviewed your technology sharing accord and would like to propose some changes." Chief Overseer Vax-9, a robot-like alien with glowing eyes, replied in a metallic voice. "The technology sharing accord has worked perfectly for 9,000 years. What changes could possibly be needed?" Nancy tapped her tablet, sending her proposal to the alien systems. "We suggest open sharing of all technologies below Class 3. Any civilization could use them freely, without restrictions." The room erupted in shocked noises. Some aliens clicked or buzzed, others changed colors. One small green alien actually fainted. "This is madness," declared Vax-9 when order was restored. "Technology must be controlled. Species must receive proper technologies at proper development stages." "Why?" asked Nancy simply. The question seemed to confuse the aliens. They looked at each other, uncertain how to respond. Finally, a wrinkled ancient alien named Zor spoke up. "Because that is how it has always been done. New species receive technologies slowly as they are ready." "And who decides when they're ready?" Nancy asked. "We do, of course," said Vax-9. "The Technology Committee has the wisdom and experience to judge." Nancy nodded. "On Earth, we have a different approach. We believe that knowledge should be shared openly, that all peoples should have access to helpful technologies. That progress happens fastest when ideas flow freely." The aliens spent hours trying to convince Nancy that her proposal was dangerous. They showed her records of ancient wars caused by technologies in the wrong hands. They explained how their careful system prevented disasters. Nancy listened politely. When they finished, she simply said, "Earth stands by its proposal. Open sharing of technologies will benefit everyone." The committee rejected Earth's proposal unanimously. They expected that to be the end of the matter. They were wrong. 2 weeks later, Earth made a shocking announcement. Humans would create their own technology-sharing network, open to any species who wanted to join. They called it the Open Innovation Alliance. The Concordat was furious. They threatened sanctions, boycotts, even military action. Earth ignored them and proceeded with their plan. At first, only 3 species joined the human network. They were young civilizations, new to space travel. The older established species remained loyal to the Concordat system. Then something unexpected happened. The young species who joined the human network began developing new technologies at an amazing speed. Progress that would have taken decades, under Concordat rules, happened in weeks. A planet called Nexus created new medical tools that could cure diseases that had plagued their people for centuries. The world of Terrax developed better farming methods that ended their food shortages. The ocean planet Aquamar built cities under the sea using technologies the Concordat would have withheld for another 200 years. Word spread. More species began to show interest in the human way. In an emergency meeting of the Concordat High Council, the situation was described as a crisis. "The humans have created a parallel system that undermines our entire framework," said High Counselor Zim, a tall, thin alien with 6 arms. "If we don't stop this now, the carefully balanced technological tiers we've maintained for thousands of years will collapse." "Perhaps," suggested a younger counselor named Kira. "Their system has advantages we should consider." The room went silent. Finally, Zim spoke in a cold voice. "That kind of thinking is exactly what makes the humans dangerous. They make us question foundations that should never be questioned." On Earth, Nancy Wilson met with the leaders of the Open Innovation Alliance. Representatives from 12 species now sat around the table, sharing ideas and plans. "The Concordat has formally condemned our alliance," Nancy told them. "They say we're disrupting the galactic order." A delegate from Nexus, a small purple alien named Vrex, spoke up. "They fear change. My world has advanced more in 6 months with open sharing than in 50 years under Concordat rules." "Same with us," said Mira from Terrax. Our people no longer starve, thanks to technologies the Concordat would have kept from us for generations. Nancy nodded. We need to expand our efforts. Earth has developed a new faster-than-light drive that can be built using simple materials. We want to share it with everyone in the Alliance. The aliens looked shocked. Under Concordat rules, such technology would be restricted to only the most advanced species. You would give us this freely? Asked Vrex in disbelief. Of course, said Nancy. That's the whole point. We share what we know. You share what you know. Everyone benefits. As the meeting continued, none of them noticed a small spy drone watching from a corner of the room. The Concordat was monitoring everything. 3 days later, a fleet of 30 Concordat warships arrived in Earth's solar system. They took position near Mars and sent a message to Earth's leaders. Your technology sharing activities are declared illegal under Concordat law, announced Fleet Admiral Drex, a large reptilian alien. Cease immediately or face severe consequences. In the White House Situation Room, President Howard met with his advisors. The room was tense as they watched the alien fleet on their screens. Our ships are outnumbered 10-1, said Admiral Grant. We can't win a direct fight. But we can't give in either, said Ambassador Chen. The Open Innovation Alliance is too important. The president looked thoughtful. Nancy, what's the status of Project Starlight? Chief Engineer Wilson checked her tablet. Almost ready, sir. We need another 48 hours. Can you do it in 24? Nancy hesitated, then nodded. We'll make it work. The president turned to Ambassador Chen. Tell the Concordat we need 2 days to consider their demands. Stall them however you can. For the next 24 hours, Earth's best scientists and engineers worked nonstop. Project Starlight was a new communication system unlike anything in the galaxy. Instead of using normal space signals that could be blocked, it used quantum connections that couldn't be interrupted. When it was ready, Nancy sent the same message to every member of the Open Innovation Alliance. Stand with us. The Concordat. Fleet was preparing to attack when their sensors detected something strange. Ships were appearing all around them, small vessels from a dozen different worlds. Each one broadcast the same message. We stand with Earth. There weren't many ships, perhaps 50 in total. They posed no real threat to the powerful Concordat fleet, but their presence sent a powerful message. Earth was not alone. Fleet Admiral Drex was furious. This changes nothing. We will enforce Concordat law. Then another message arrived from Earth. It contained detailed plans for advanced shield technology that could protect against Concordat weapons. The same message was sent to every inhabited world in the galaxy, Concordat members included. The message was simple. Knowledge belongs to everyone. In the Concordat fleet, confusion spread as some captains received messages from their homeworlds. Leaders were arguing about what to do. Citizens were questioning why information should be restricted. Slowly, the Concordat ships began to pull back. Nancy Wilson watched from Earth as the alien fleet retreated. They're leaving, she told the president. Our plan worked. For now, said Admiral Grant. But this isn't over. The Concordat won't give up their control easily. No, agreed the president. But we've shown the galaxy another way. And ideas, once spread, can never be stopped. As the Concordat fleet disappeared into deep space, communications poured in from worlds across the galaxy. Many were angry or afraid, but many more were intrigued, curious, even excited. The humans had challenged the oldest, most fundamental rules of the galactic civilization, and in doing so, they had started a revolution that would change everything. The Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Concordat had not been this full in over 500 years. Representatives from every member species had gathered. The massive room buzzed with nervous energy as aliens of all shapes and sizes waited for the meeting to begin. Today, the Concordat would decide what to do about the humans. Supreme Counselor Dex stood at the center of the room. He was one of the oldest living beings in the galaxy, with pale blue skin and long white hair. He had led the Concordat for nearly 1,000 years. This special assembly is now in session, he announced. his voice carrying through the hall. For almost 3 years, humanity has rejected or changed every accord, treaty, and rule that has maintained peace in our galaxy for 10,000 years. Today, we must decide whether there is any path forward together. The human delegation sat calmly in their section. Steve Johnson had been appointed as Earth's new Galactic Affairs Director. He was a tall man with dark skin and a quiet confidence. Supreme Counselor Dex turned to the humans. "Director Johnson, you may address the assembly." Steve walked to the center of the room. He could feel thousands of alien eyes watching him. "Thank you, Supreme Counselor," he began. "Representatives of the Concordat, I understand your frustration with humanity. From your perspective, we must seem reckless, even dangerous. We've rejected your resource allocation accord, ignored your defense limitation treaty, changed your cultural exchange program, and created our own technology sharing network. But I ask you to consider the results of our actions." Steve gestured to a group of aliens from the younger species that had joined Earth's alliance. "In the 3 years since Earth made first contact, technological development among our partner species has increased by 300%. New medical treatments have saved millions of lives. Improved food production has ended hunger on 6 worlds. Cultural exchange programs based on our model have created art and music that enriches lives across the galaxy." Murmurs spread through the hall as Steve continued. "The Open Innovation Alliance now includes 27 species. Our open approach to technology sharing has led to breakthroughs that might have taken centuries under the old system." An older alien stood up angrily. "And what of stability, of safety? Your reckless sharing could lead to dangerous technologies in unprepared hands." Steve nodded respectfully. "A valid concern. But in our alliance, technology comes with responsibility. Members pledge to use knowledge for peaceful purposes and to help one another. So far, there have been no misuses of shared technology." For the next hour, the debate continued. Some aliens supported the humans. Others wanted Earth isolated or even punished. Tempers flared. At times, the Supreme Counselor had to call for order. Finally, a small, ancient alien named Yik asked for permission to speak. She was from one of the founding species of the Concordat, and her opinion carried great weight. "I have a question for the human," she said in a quiet voice that somehow cut through the noise. "Director Johnson, why do you humans reject our system? Is it pride, ambition, a desire for power?" Steve thought carefully before answering. "None of those things, Elder Yik. We reject your system not because we want to destroy what you've built, but because after 10,000 years, your rules have become chains rather than guides. The Concordat was created to help species grow together in peace, but over time it became focused on control rather than growth." He looked around the room. "Humanity doesn't want to tear down the Concordat. We want to help it evolve, to become what it was meant to be, a true community of worlds helping each other reach their full potential." The hall was completely silent when he finished. Supreme Counselor Dex stared at Steve with an unreadable expression. Then, to everyone's surprise, the ancient alien laughed. "In 10,000 years of guiding the Concordat, I have never met a species so frustratingly correct in their assessment," Dex said. "Perhaps it is we who have been blind, not you who have been reckless." He turned to address the entire assembly. "The human speaks truth we have avoided for too long. Our system has preserved peace, yes. But at what cost? How many worlds have been held back? How many discoveries never made? How many lives never improved because we feared change?" Shock spread through the room. The Supreme Counselor was actually agreeing with the humans. "I propose something unprecedented," Dex continued. "Not the punishment or isolation of Earth, but the creation of a new galactic charter. Not to replace the Concordat, but to evolve it. To incorporate human adaptability while preserving the stability that has prevented wars for millennia." The next 12 hours were filled with intense debate. Some species refused to consider changes to the ancient system. Others eagerly supported reform. But gradually, a consensus began to form. By the time the session ended, an historic decision had been made. A joint committee would be formed, half Concordat representatives, half from Earth and its allies. Together they would write a new galactic charter that balanced freedom with responsibility, progress with stability. As the assembly dispersed, Steve Johnson found himself approached by Supreme Counselor Dex. "You humans have accomplished something remarkable," the ancient alien said quietly. "You've made a civilization that survived 10,000 years question its most fundamental assumptions." Steve smiled. "That's what humans do best, Counselor. We question everything, especially ourselves." "The galaxy will never be the same," Dex observed. "And that," Steve replied, "is precisely the point." In the years that followed, humanity's influence spread throughout the galaxy. The new Galactic Charter created a different kind of interstellar community. The rigid rules of the old Concordat were replaced with flexible principles that maintained peace while encouraging innovation. Resources were still managed to prevent waste, but each world had more control over its own development. Technology was shared more openly, but with safeguards against misuse. Cultural exchange became truly free, creating a golden age of art, music, and ideas. Earth's fleet grew, but it was no longer seen as a threat. Instead, human ships joined with those of other worlds to explore the unknown parts of the galaxy, seeking new discoveries and adventures. Back on Earth, Admiral Susan Grant stood in the garden outside the new Galactic Charter headquarters in Geneva. She watched as aliens and humans worked together, planning the future. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" asked Ambassador Karen Chen, joining her. Susan shook her head. "When we first rejected their resource accord, I thought we might end up fighting a war against the entire galaxy. Instead, we changed the galaxy," Karen said. "Not just the galaxy," Susan replied. "We changed ourselves too. Working with other species has taught us so much." In a classroom on a distant world called Mira, a young alien teacher spoke to her students about recent history, and that is how humans helped create the new Galactic Charter, she explained. "They showed us that questioning old ways is not dangerous, but necessary for growth." A small student raised a tentacle. "Teacher, what made the humans different from other species?" The teacher thought for a moment. "Humans have many qualities, but perhaps their greatest is this. When faced with a problem, they don't accept that it cannot be solved. When told something is impossible, they try anyway. When given rules that don't make sense, they create better ones." She smiled at her students. Throughout the galaxy, when people face difficult challenges, they now ask themselves, what would humans do? The answer almost always begins with questioning the very assumptions that make the problem seem impossible in the first place, and that, perhaps, is humanity's greatest gift to the stars.